Welcome to Author News Weekly, the weekly news show by authors for authors. We read the news so you don't have to. Join our panel of best-selling authors each week as we take a deep dive into the publishing world, both indie and traditional. Author News Weekly. Yeah, whatever. Welcome back to Author News Weekly. I'm McGee. Thanks for joining us this week. We got plenty of great stuff to talk about, but before we get started, let me introduce our panel. First off, we have sitting somewhere at an undisclosed location in Colorado, Mr. Jim Heskett.
Hello, welcome to the show.
Excellent. And then up in the northern wilds, I think, where she resides and wrestles bears from time to time, we have Philippa Werner.
Hello.
Excellent. And then the only one of us living in paradise on a daily basis, Mr. Nick Thacker.
One man's paradise, another man's hell, I guess, right?
Well, when you're as insulated as I am, humidity and heat is a terrible thing. So better than you than me, my friend. Before we get started, I have a question that I want to ask you guys that relates to nothing, but it's been on my mind lately. Okay.
Ooh, I'm ready.
The question is, and you may recognize it, but it's from such a profound movie that it's really rung true in my soul.
Mighty Ducks.
Can you actually just be whelmed? Is my question. You can be overwhelmed. You can be underwhelmed. But when are you whelmed? And when is it appropriate to be whelmed?
I think it's appropriate at the same time that you can say, well, those were certainly all words. Just like, okay. I'm just whelmed by that. It's sort of the same ethos as, well, we could unpack all of that, but what if we just burned the suitcase instead?
Indeed.
I think being whelmed is sort of like that hard to attain sweet spot in between drink number 3 and 4, where you're just the perfect amount of, buzzed, and then you quickly lose it. So like you can be whelmed, but it's very hard and it only lasts for a small amount of time.
That's what she said. Hi, good times, whelming. That's just wanted to get to the bottom of the whelming conundrum.
So is that like that's the Balmer Peak then? Are you familiar with that as a?
I am not.
The Balmer Peak is, I think, Steve Ballmer. It's the idea that there is a specific amount of buzz that is the correct amount for programming. And it's very difficult to maintain.
Interesting. My roommate and I used to have a thing where when we would play pool and we were both sober, I would demolish him 10 times out of 10. But as we drank, he got better and I got worse. And somewhere around beer 6, it was the most even match you could have. And then after that, I just descended into madness. So
the whelming.
Yes, the whelming has occurred.
Here, how about this?
That is our news segment, and I am whelmed by that transition. So, moving on to our first story. Now, this is something that popped up not too long ago, and I want to get your guys' take on it because we have some folks in here who have used pen names and use pen names and things like that. This is Amazon outing authors' pen names. I got this story from the Hidden Gems website. I think it was sent to me by one of you three. And essentially, long story short, Amazon ads sent out letters to people, to their physical letters to their home addresses, but in the name of their pen name instead of their real name. And so I wanted to get your guys' take on that first and get warmed up and see what's going on with that? Pippa, what do you think about that? I know you're an author of many pen names.
Well, there are definitely ones. So there have been different parts of my family that have said, "Oh, what's your romance pen name?" And like, you cannot know that. You cannot know that. But I agree with one of the sort of throwaway lines of this article, which is that there's literally no reason for this. Like, I can't understand why it would make sense for them to dig through all of the pen names and send out mail to that. Like, they know who's doing the publishing.
Right, because ostensibly they're giving people their real paperwork and their tax info and their real names, their legal names.
Yeah. So that's the important thing. And it just seems like a lot of effort for a very baffling, like, I just don't get it.
You and me both.
So I'm reading it now. I guess what happened was somebody got sent physical mail to their pen name. Is that what happened? Is that what we're talking about?
Someone sent a person physical mail in the name of their pen name to their real address.
Oh, okay. So anyone like living with that author or sharing, or of course the USPS rarely makes mistakes, but potentially they could put it in the wrong mailbox or something like that, right? And
or just like say you're making income that you don't want someone to know about, or you're just very private. You've got roommates, or
sure, that's a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal because, like, just like you said, this is stupid. This should not have happened.
Right.
That doesn't really make sense. It's almost like it's on purpose for them to,
Well, the article says whether it was willful or a mistake, and there's no reason Amazon would willfully do this. Obviously, this was a mistake. Obviously, in Amazon, there's a database somewhere and your pen name is probably the line right after your real name in that database. It's probably some variable like F name and P name, and they just merged in the wrong thing when they sent the email.
Yeah,
so I mean, there's no conspiracy here. This was just
no. Sorry, I didn't mean to imply conspiracy. I just mean I mean on purpose, as far as like they didn't read the letter before they sent it out. Like they didn't double check. There's one person clicking the mail merge button and then delivering all the mail to
I think it was, looking at the content of the actual letter, it seems like it was purposefully sent to the pen name, but from someone who didn't really understand. Like they didn't, not that it was a conspiracy. It was just like, oh, this person's book has done X in the rankings. We want to send them a letter to see if we can get them to invest in Amazon ads. What's the first name of the author? And so they purposefully pulled from what happened to be the wrong column because someone's brain just didn't connect where it needed to with, okay, but the author name is not the publisher name.
Here's the throwaway line that I like best about this article. They're calling into Amazon to complain, and it says, quote, based on the variety of responses they heard based on multiple calls, it's clear that Amazon reps were unprepared to handle this issue, which in Author News Weekly terms is the absolute least surprising thing I've ever read in my entire life. And you can quote me on that, everyone, because this is where I'm coming. Like, I don't have pen names. I don't write under a pen name. I probably never will. I get it though, and we honor that. But this isn't even about that to me. This is about Amazon's customer support being abysmal, and it always has been, and it always will be at this point. And I specifically mean Kindle, KDP support, because I feel like when I call as a customer and say, hey, you got me the wrong package, they're like, can we give you shares of our company? Can we give you Amazon Prime for 20 years? Can we just have a free knife set? Like just all kinds of ridiculous things that they go over and above for. And then we get to the authors who support at least a certain percentage of their income. And it's like they don't even care to hire people who understand their own system that they built for us. So rant over, but that's my take on this whole thing is Amazon sucks, water's wet.
Well, I will say this about support teams after I've spent many years working in tech support for various software companies, and we were never once prepared to handle a screw up. We never anticipated the dev team pushing out a bad release. That's not like what we counted on. But when it happened, we still had to deal with it either way, whether we were prepared or not.
Financial services call center on this end, and it was stuff like they would send out letters that were technically correct. Like a fund had changed names, and so they would send a letter to 10,000 customers and just be like, thank you for your sale of X. And the customers would all call and be like, I did not. What did you? Yeah. You're like, oh.
I think with this article, the moral of the story for authors, the lesson for authors here is that if you can't trust any company to value your private information the same level you do, and so if if other people in your household finding out your pen name would be a very serious situation, then you need a PO box.
Right.
You need a PO box, separate bank account, whatever it is to keep that stuff secret, because you can't just trust Amazon is going to do it just because they said they would.
Absolutely. Yeah, I use anytimemailbox.com because back when we were moving back and forth from Colorado to Hawaii, I needed basically a PO box, but I hate the post office, as I've mentioned previously and will be likely to do later in this episode. And they're like $12 a month, so they're not super cheap, but it is a great way for anyone out there. Like if you just need an easy solution, you essentially set it up on their website, and they partner with like local UPS stores or mail and ship kind of stores. And so it's a perfect way to handle something like this where no one else has access to that but you.
Very good. Very good. And just as a point of reference, if you're listening to this after the fact and you want to try to ensure this doesn't happen to you, there's a link that we can post in the bottom that shows the setting that you can turn off. So allegedly, this won't happen to you in the future. But I think Nick and Jim probably have the right of it, and you should just make other arrangements. Okay, let's move on to the next story here, which interestingly enough revolves around Amazon as well. And this one's kind of weird. I don't really know what to think about this. Basically, the big byline is that Amazon has been hit with an ebook price fixing suit, and that the law firm that sued Apple and other publishers for colluding to fix ebook prices a decade ago has now filed a class action suit against Amazon itself, accusing the company of colluding with the big five publishers to restrain price competition in the ebook market. And so, what's going on here? What's going on here, Nick? What do you think about this, man? What's going on with this price fixing and colluding business?
Man, I heard about this a couple weeks ago, and I've not been very good at keeping up with the details because I don't really have much interest in like the legal mumbo jumbo stuff. I don't understand it, and so I was kind of waiting to see if they get it further along when they can review. I know some of it's going to be wrapped up in court, right? So they can't really talk about it or arbitration at least. But I guess my big question to you guys is like, is this conspiratorial in any way, being the same law firm that did it earlier? Like, are they, what's the right word, predatory toward Amazon, and that like they know that they're good for at least a payout to shut up? Is this kind of what this law firm does? Like, do they just keep going after the guys that'll pay them and tell them to shut up every time? Or do you think there's actually some merit here?
Well, I mean, they have I think there's merit to it. I don't know if there's legal merit to it. Most favored nation clauses are something that almost never works out in a consumer's favor in any industry, and are something that is actually used in publishing specifically to disenfranchise people. So you see a version of it with when you're signed by traditional publishers, that they cannot give you any better terms, because any better terms they give you, they already have built into other people's contracts that they have to give those people the best terms of any available. So that's why they're very sticky on any changes that they make. And so this is a similar sort of thing. It's something that comes up naturally in a market, but it's one of those unregulated markets are not free markets. Unregulated markets keep coming up with things like this that keep markets from being free. And the question is just if it's illegal or not. There's definitely merit to it.
Sure. Okay, that's fair. Yeah. But so the Sherman Antitrust Act is what these guys are all claiming. They're basically saying that Amazon is anti-competitive because they want to set the price of ebooks. And I would say, yes, absolutely. The goal of a company in a capitalistic society is to control the market in however you can. Mm-hmm. I'm not making a comment on whether that's right or wrong. I'm just making a comment on, it seems like if we wanted to be more competitive, our government maybe should go help the companies that aren't doing a whole lot to try to sell books very well. Like maybe they should just give Apple a bunch of money to build a better bookstore.
There's two things I think at work here. And one is that Amazon retains market dominance because yes, it has a large market share now. And so things that it does are disproportionately effective. And there's the question to be asked about, should the largest competitor in any industry be held to a different standard than other people because certain similar actions have a disproportionate effect? But there's also the fact that from the beginning, Amazon has been a huge part of the market because they are so much easier to work with. Even when they're screwing authors over, it is still a bitch and a half comparatively to work with most other platforms. And so,
picture the size of a bitch. That would be a bitch and a half. Like, is that?
That's a big bitch.
That's a big
bitch.
Volkswagen.
It's a big bitch.
Oh man. Hey, can somebody explain price fixing to me? Because I don't really understand what this means.
So the idea is that these 5 publishers have agreed to Amazon that their price at Amazon will always be lower than it is at any other place, is what the suit is alleging. So that anyone who shops anywhere else is then penalized for shopping at a different store because this publisher has agreed via, I think the alleged thing is Amazon's undue influence on the publisher, that there is no better place ever to buy this book than there. And so that someone who doesn't have access to Amazon or whatever the case may be is now at a disadvantage, which should not be allowed.
This kind of reminds me of a meme I saw the other day that was like, I don't understand the stock market. All I know is that when it goes up, nothing happens, but when it goes down, we all lose our jobs. And that's kind of what this feels like. It's like mom and dad are fighting, and I don't really understand it, but I know that we're not going to come out of it better off than we were before. Probably.
Yeah, it's
maybe. I don't know. I mean, Jim, this seems like it's with more of this is the big 5 publishers, right? And so it may not work out well for them. And I guess you could say indirectly, it might not work out for the self-published, the smaller authors down the chain, because more traditional published authors will go that route, maybe because of this, but making it more competitive for us. But I don't know. I don't know that it's going to, do you think it'll affect us directly?
I don't know.
Honestly, it's just one of those things that's happening in the background, and it's sort of this unceasing arms race of any large corporation is endlessly trying to get around regulations and, come up with a way to ensure market dominance, and people making the regulations are trying to stop them because monopolies are not good. They just aren't.
No, they're not. But
so we find ourselves, just on the sidelines.
Precedent for what a monopoly looks like, and Amazon isn't anywhere near it. I mean, it's just not. Just by definition, like what the Congress has said a monopoly is in the German Antitrust Act. Amazon's not anywhere near it. It does feel like that, and most people would probably disagree with what I just said, but it's just.
It doesn't have to be near it for its. I use monopoly as a sort of an asymptotic approach.
Sure. Yeah.
A situation where that's what they're going for, and they are certainly in a position where the things they do.
That's fair. Yeah, that's true. Amazon is the biggest, right? And so they are the easiest target for this kind of thing. I guess, so the last thing I'll say on it, because I don't understand it, again, the details, I hate stuff like this. I love it because it's what's going to happen, but I hate it because these things are always inevitably pretty vague. Like I'm hoping that some lawyer somewhere who's suing Amazon has something better than, I quote, "stop enforcing anti-competitive price restraints." Like, what does that mean? Like, okay, so what do you want us to do? Dude, what you want? Okay. So somewhere there needs to be a definition of what an anti-competitive pricing restraint would be. And I don't know what that is. And so I'm kind of waiting to see what's going to be, what's going to come of that. But the quote that I love, that I think is hilarious, is right before that. It says, "Among the relief requested, this suit seeks monetary reimbursement for consumers who purchased ebooks through Amazon's competitors. It would require Amazon and the publishers essentially to pay money to consumers who purchase books from someone besides Amazon."
Yep.
Because they got ripped off because the price fix was in. They had to pay more because the market's not actually free.
Yeah. So basically,
the
Amazon made it so that you could never help but lose money if you shopped at a competitor.
Right.
And so what's being said is consumers were the ones that were left holding the short end of the stick.
Very weird.
So the store was forced to purchase it from somewhere else for more expensive?
Not necessarily
or did they make
forced.
a choice because they're free to shop wherever they want and they chose to pay a little bit more, knowing full well that there's a company called Amazon probably selling it for less?
That starts to get into, is there a legal basis for the suit?
Right, and that's where I'm coming. It's like there's a philosophical component of like, well, I don't want to shop at Amazon. Well, that's great. You have the freedom to not shop at Amazon.
It starts to get into more like you edge towards a whole bunch of things about where people are choosing to shop and why they're choosing to shop there and what options they actually do have. And so certain people may not have as many options as you would think. It's like, well, Comcast isn't nationwide a monopoly, but there are certain places where only Comcast is available and there isn't another internet competitor. So is it essentially monopolistic? And I think that's where we're butting up against. And if Amazon makes it impossible for places to offer, they're essentially saying Heskett and Penguin and all of those only sell through us. So it is sort of a con on the other end for them to be like, well, this is a good, it's the same good.
Yeah, I guess
and you're pretending you sell it, but you don't really sell it via Walmart. You only sell it via Amazon.
Yeah. But then that's weird because they're forcing you to go to them to get the cheaper price, but it's the easiest available one. So it's almost like you have to work hard to go and spend more. I don't know. You know what? This broke my head. Let's move on. All right. Let's move on. Let's move on to something that's a little easier to understand, and that is revenge reviews. So we've got this story here. It's pretty interesting. I know how big of a fan a couple of you are of Goodreads, and I'm just teeing that one up
as much as I like Amazon.
I'm just teeing that one up. It looks like there have been a number of authors who are being essentially blackmailed by scammers. And what the scammers do is they post multiple one-star reviews, which are often exactly the same spelling errors and things like that. And then they contact the author and say, if you want us to take these reviews down, you got to do, X, Y, Z, pay something or what have you. And it doesn't look like Goodreads is doing much to stop this. This person here says that someone wanted $200 to fix it and things like that. So, what do you guys think about that, man? Are we caring what happens on Goodreads? Are we negotiating with the review terrorists? What's happening here?
Well, part of the problem is that Amazon and Goodreads have this idea that the review is sacrosanct, that like the review is unimpeachable and it can't be taken down for any reason except for, I don't know, whatever arbitrary things they've decided. So just to get any review removed, even for a legit reason, is super hard. So these scammers are definitely smart when it comes to that. But personally, if I was blackmailed on Goodreads, I wouldn't even know. So I have no idea because I don't read my Goodreads messages. I don't read my Goodreads reviews. So
Jim checking back in a month later, like, sorry, I don't look at this email very often.
Wow, 1 star. Woo.
Yeah, so go ahead and
just reviews on Goodreads, right? They're not actually reviews on Amazon as well.
No, because Amazon now has that $50. You have to spend $50 a year to be able to use reviews. And from what I've heard, that as much as people complain about that $50 a year threshold, it seems to have effectively eliminated a lot of the untoward practices people were doing.
I imagine it would, yeah. I've never, thankfully, knock on wood, struggled from this kind of stuff, blackmail or whatever, especially with reviews. But yeah, I'm with you, Jim. I'd be like, I could be getting blackmailed right now and I would not know it. I don't even know if I
It's
can
2
log into
p.m.
Goodreads.
Do you know where your reviews are?
All right. Well, I think that maybe this is kind of much ado about nothing. But if you do get caught up in the cycle, I think the best thing you could probably do is contact Goodreads and forward them your terroristic threats. And
Forward
hopefully they'll
that
help
and
you.
then go speak to some other authors who can just say, have a cup of tea or a stick drink. Just mold your brain on the horizon.
Woo-saw. All right. Right on. And so, okay, let's go to our next story here. And this is actually something that came from Book Brush a while back. And they said that they polled some authors and that there were some commonalities with people who felt like they were being held back in their author career. And so, I think we have a little bit of time left. I kind of want to throw a couple of these out to you guys because I think that as authors, we're all pretty seasoned and some of these things seem a little remedial. But I remember what it was like to kind of have some of these questions and not really know how to answer them. And so if you guys can shine the light of experience on a few of these things, there may be some people who get something out of this. And so the first thing that they say that's holding people back, that, is kind of stopping people, is apparently a stigma that's still attached to self-publishing. Then the number one is that they have to be traditionally published to be a quote unquote real author. And so I know that we've all had to consider that and deal with that at some point in our career. What do you guys do about the stigma and how do you get around it? Does it even affect you anymore at this point?
It doesn't affect me. I remember early on, my goal was with my first book, it was a gift from my dad. And my goal was to have a real book, but it didn't matter who published it or who didn't, I just wanted to have a hardcover that was real to me. That's how I defined it. And so I think this whole thing, this argument is just a clarifying definitions is what needs to happen. So to someone who says a real author, I think they need to ask themselves, well, what does real mean? Does it mean I'm making real money that I can spend on a real electric bill every month? Or is real, I need to be a real traditionally published author, meaning a traditional publishing company like Heskett or whoever will publish it. Or like me, is it just a real book? I want to see a real, hard copy or something else entirely. So it's just a definitions issue at this point.
And so for you, the way to get that down was as long as you had a book in your hand, you felt like that was what you were trying to achieve.
Yeah,
that was your
exactly.
definition.
Like obviously
this.
I knew there was more to it than that. I could have chosen to define it as I want to sell 500 copies of this book before I can call myself a real author.
Sure.
But that wasn't my particular goal. It was just to have a real book that I could give to my dad wrapped up under a tree, And so I did. And then the next goal became write another book and maybe, try to sell more ebook copies or whatever. But that's just it, right? Like it's usually a moving target because we hopefully are challenging ourselves and growing as authors.
Mm-hmm. I will say, I think the thing that we generally don't admit to as authors, which is that I am still very much affected by this, that I do feel like it does get under my skin a lot. One of the things definitely that I remember reading books when I was younger and just looking up to these authors and knowing that if I were to be in an awards show with them, they would not look at me as an equal. And that is annoying to me. And at the same time, it doesn't change the facts that self-published authors are by and large producing work that is just as good, oftentimes better, that there's more flexibility, there's more that we're able to respond to things that readers are asking for that maybe traditional publishers are unwilling to take a risk on. And so I think it is by and large a better way to do justice to the stories that I'm writing. but yeah, there's definitely a trade-off there. And I think the key thing for me is that everyone has that trade-off. I hear from traditionally published authors, God, yes, I know that you self-published authors think that I'm so stupid for doing it traditionally because I don't get as much of the profits, or, whatever sector you're in, people are feeling this sort of other people look down on me, and it's not comfortable, and it's just something you got to work through and pick your best path despite.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. The imposter syndrome is real, right?
Yeah, always.
But if you normalized at a certain income level, say something really easy like $1,000 a year, just to eliminate all the people who published one book and then never messed with it again. But if you normalized at $1,000 a year and then interviewed every author on the planet, you'd probably find more traditional published authors still had day jobs than self-published authors. That's my theory.
Okay, so wait. So if you had 1,000, what's the $1,000 a year?
If you set the threshold at $1,000 a year, like every author who makes at least $1,000 a year from their books, the traditionally published ones would be more likely or the same amount likely to have a day job as self-published authors making
I see. Okay.
a minimum amount of money. Because a lot of people define real, quote unquote, real author by whether or not you still have a day job. And I don't think traditionally published authors are any less likely to have a day job than a self-published author.
I would just say I have a day job. It's called being an author.
A non-writing day job.
Yes.
I think you're right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
There's this idea in Stoicism called quiet confidence, and I feel like, kind of more to Philippa's point, like I've been in conferences before where I'm sitting next to pretty esteemed, traditionally published, I don't want to name any names, authors, and they're great writers, and their books are good. They're not, stratospheric success stories. They're not like crazy, household names, but people have heard of them. And I'm obviously, there's no way to actually know, but I'm pretty sure I make more money than them. I'm pretty sure that I have more reviews than they do. That actually I do know. I can figure that out. And this isn't not an arrogance thing for me. It's having the quiet confidence to know that, like, they think they're better than me, or they've said something that it seems to say that they think they're better than self-published authors, and they're painting with a broad brush and all that, of course, because of their traditional published success. And I can sit there and have the quiet confidence to know that's not true. You're not better than me or worse than me. You're just different, if that's anyone listening is in that same position, I hope that's helpful. Like, just have the quiet confidence to know, even if you don't have the reviews or the sales, that it's pretty damn hard to write a book in the first place. And so you've done that. That's something most humans have not done or never will do, or ever will do. And so, that's something you can use as kind of put in your quiet confidence bucket, and just let that kind of be an assurance that, doesn't matter. All this stuff is just talk,
Just talk. And what you need to be focusing on is making the next book better. And
where's your mountain, and are you moving closer toward it every day?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very good stuff, guys. I was easy for my validation. I just wanted one review from someone who was not related to me. And then I felt like I had arrived. And I still remember the first time I logged on to Amazon, and there was the one little star on there, and it was 5 stars. And I read it, and I got a little weepy on the inside. I got a little weepy that someone read it and liked it.
In the room.
Yeah, and then once I did that, I was like, oh well, if there's one, then there's at least like 30 or 40, so I'm good to go.
Everybody knows that one online anonymous review equals like 1 million real people. So
yeah, I'm good, man. I'm ready to rock.
My math checks out.
I still remember getting my first review on something from someone I didn't know, and it was on Smashwords. And so Smashwords sent me this email to say there's a new review on your book. And I was riding home on the bus from my non-writing day job, and I went to go look, and they had sent the email before it had updated on the public-facing website. So there, I still couldn't see it, and I was just sitting there being like, "No, I have to know."
Lies. Why are you lying to me right now? Amazing.
That's funny.
So that's good. I think I'm going to save. I got a few more of those, but I think I'm going to save them because I think we're coming pretty good on time here. I'm going to save those. Talk about some of the things that new authors face or contend with, going forward. But But before we get out of here, I would like to ask you guys what I want to ask you every week, which is after all this doom and gloom talking about the publishing industry, who can tell me something good? What's one good thing going on in somebody's world right now? I would love to hear it. Come on, people. Come on.
I have written some of the funniest work of my career over the past week, and I'm deeply enjoying it. So
good.
I'm enjoying that.
I was worried that you were trying to write something very serious. Because that often happens to me. I just wrote the funniest thing I've ever written, and they're like, "Congratulations!" And I'm like, "It's supposed to be horror."
Yeah.
No, it's well, part of it is honestly it is epic fantasy, and it's like hugely high stakes, and it's just one of the things that I'm trying to do in this book is just be like, okay, well, now we're at this like awkward moment where no one really knows what to say, and like there's armies everywhere. We're like, okay, like, do you talk first? Do I talk first?
Yeah, I love it. Diffuse the tension somewhere. That's good. Well, we'll all celebrate your funny writing victory with you, because Lord knows it's hard enough to do. So,
I have been planting grass in our rocks out in the yard. We moved in. They had to clear the lot. There's these nasty trees that will break, and so they try to clear them out, and so they replace it with this what they call cinder, which is just lava rocks. So the entire acre is lava rocks, and so we tried to plant soil and grass, and you would think that anything can grow in Hawaii, and you would be wrong, because I'm in Hawaii now, and I can kill it. And so we put the grass down, and it grew great for like 10 minutes, and then it got all yellow and weird. And so we were like, well, what the hell, man? You're in Hawaii. Like, what do you need? And it was like food. And so I sprinkled some fertilizer on it finally in a moment of sheer wisdom. And like within 10 seconds later, it was like, oh my God, thank you. And now it's green again, and it's growing like little, what do they call them? Little runners, little snakes. And it looks like it's actually going to stay here and live with me for a little while. So I'm pretty happy about the grass. And if you guys are old like me, you want all of a sudden understand that how important a yard is to a man. I mean, it's just, it's something about it, right? It just makes me go,
You need something to gaze upon.
I did a man thing.
What's really ironic about it is, and I'm glad my wife is at Target right now. She did it all. She did all the work. We spread the soil together.
Just like a man.
Plot twist.
Yeah, plot twist. I just get to look at it outside while she's doing all the toiling and laboring in the sun.
Excellent. Well, all right, guys. Well, if no one has anything else to add about something good or any of our topics, and it doesn't look like there's anything, with all that said, thanks for joining us this week. I'm Ari McGee for all of us at Author News Weekly, and I look forward to, I don't know what I'm saying right now. What am I even saying? What am I looking forward to? All right, anyways.
This meeting is over.
This meeting is over.
This meeting is over. Goodbye, everybody.